Every great story has a beginning. To understand the man who changed literature, we must travel back in time. We must go back to a place called Ogidi in Nigeria. The year is 1938. Imagine a land of deep green trees and red earth. In the mornings, the air is filled with the sound of birds and the smell of wood smoke. This was Ogidi. It was a place of strong traditions and ancient customs. In this village, a baby boy was born on November 16th. His parents named him Albert Chinua Achebe. At that time, Nigeria was a colony of Great Britain. Because of this, many people had two names, an English name and an African name. His English name was Albert, named after Prince Albert of England. But his African name, Chinua Achebe, had a much deeper meaning. In Igbo language, it means, "May God fight on my behalf." Chinua did not grow up in a typical household. His home was a very special place where two different worlds lived under one roof. His father, Isaiah Achebe, was a teacher and an evangelist. He worked for the church. Isaiah was a man of the New World. He wore Western clothes. He read the Bible, and he believed strongly in the power of modern education. His mother, Janet Achebe, was also a devoted Christian. She was a woman of great strength who helped lead the women in their church. In their home, the English language and Christian hymns were heard every single day. However, just outside their front door, the old world was still alive. Even though Chinua's parents followed the new religion, many of their relatives did not. His uncle, for example, remained a follower of the traditional Igbo religion. As a young boy, Chinua was fascinated. He would watch his neighbors celebrate traditional festivals. He listened to the rhythmic sound of the wooden drums. He saw the elders wearing beautiful, hard-woven clothes as they gathered to make important decisions for the village. Chinua's mother and sister also told him stories. These were not stories from books. They were folk tales, stories about clever tortoise, the powerful lion, and the spirits of the forest. Chinua often described himself as a child of the crossroads. A crossroad is a place where two paths meet. For Chinua, one path was the Christian faith and the English education of his father. The other path was the traditional history and the beautiful stories of his Igbo ancestors. He did not choose one path and hate the other. Instead, he stood in the middle. He watched, he listened, and he learned. He realized that his village was not simple or primitive, as the British books claimed. His village was full of wisdom, complex laws, and deep poetry. Growing up at this crossroad gave Chinua a unique vision. He could see the beauty in the new world, but he also felt the heartbeat of the old world. Little did he know, these childhood memories in Ogidi will one day become the foundation for the most famous African novel ever written. As young Chinua grew up in the village of Ogidi, he became known for one thing. His eyes and ears were always open. He was a child who loved to observe. In the village, they called him a curious child. But in those days, curiosity did not just mean asking questions. For Chinua, it meant falling in love with the magic of storytelling. In Chinua's home, language was like music. He spoke Igbo, and the language of his heart and his people. It was a language full of proverbs, short, wise sayings that acted like palm oil to make conversation go smoothly. But at school and in his father's library, he encountered English. To young Chinua, English was not a burden. It was a mystery to be solved. He loved the way the words looked on the page. He began to read everything he could find. He read the Bible, he read school textbooks, and he read adventure stories from Europe. His father's bookshelves were his favorite playground, while other children were playing outside in the red dust of the village. Chinua was often found sitting in a corner, lost in a book. He read stories about explorers traveling through dark forests and brave heroes winning battles. At first, he enjoyed these stories very much. He cheered for the heroes and hoped they would win. But as he grew older, his curiosity took a serious turn. He began to look closer at the characters in these English books. One day, Chinua realized something that changed his life forever. In the books written by Western authors, the people who looked like him, the Africans, were often described as savages or wild. They were often background characters who could not speak, or they were portrayed as people without a history or a culture. Chinua looked around his village. He saw his father, a man of great intellect. He saw the village elders who followed complex laws of justice. He heard the beautiful poetic stories told by his mother. He thought to himself, the people in these books are not my people. The writers do not understand us. This realization did not make Chinua angry. Instead, it made him determined. His curiosity turned into a mission. He realized that a story is a very powerful thing. If you do not tell your own story, someone else will tell it for you, and they might get it wrong. He decided that he would not just be a reader of stories. He would become a master of words. He would learn the English language so well that he could use it to tell the true story of Africa to the entire world. Chinua's childhood was no longer just about playing in the fields of Ogidi. It was about preparing for a battle fought not with swords, but with pen. As Chinua grew, his brilliance became impossible to ignore. In his village, people began to notice that this young boy had a mind like a sponge. He absorbed every piece of knowledge he could find. This thirst for learning led him away from the red dust of Ogidi and onto the long road of formal education. In 1944, when Chinua was 14 years old, he earned a place at Government College, Umuahia. At that time, this was one of the best schools in all of West Africa. It was often called the Eden of Nigeria because it was modeled after the famous elite schools in England. The school was very strict. The students had to speak English at all times. They studied Latin, history, and mathematics. But for Chinua, the most important part of the school was the library. He spent hours lost in the works of Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare. He was a straight A student, always at the top of his class. His teachers saw a young man with a brilliant future, perhaps as a doctor or a lawyer. After finishing high school, Chinua received a major scholarship to study medicine at the University College Ibadan. In those days, becoming a doctor was considered the highest success a young African could achieve. His family was very proud. But as Chinua sat in his science classes, he felt something was missing. His heart was not in the anatomy books or the laboratory. His heart was still in the stories he had heard as a child. There, he reached a turning point. He began to read more novels written by European authors about Africa. One book in particular, called Mr. Johnson, made him very upset. The book described Nigerians as childlike and foolish. Chinua realized that if he spent his life as a doctor, he could heal bodies. But if he became a writer, he could heal the spirit of his people. He decided to do something very brave. He gave up his medical scholarship and switched his studies to English language, history, and theology. This was a difficult choice. Because he left medicine, he lost his scholarship and had to pay for his own education. But Chinua did not mind. He felt a sense of freedom. At the university, he began to write his first short stories for the student magazine. He stopped trying to write like a British author and started trying to find a way to make the English language sound African. He realized that English could be a bridge. If he mastered this global language, he could carry the stories of his village across the ocean to the rest of the world. When Chinua graduated in 1953, he did not just leave with a degree, he left with a purpose. He was no longer just a student. He was a man who understood that the pen is mightier than the sword. He returned to the world ready to work. But his mind was already busy dreaming of a character named Okonkwo, the man who would soon introduce the true heart of Africa to millions of readers. After finishing his education, Chinua moved to the big city of Lagos. He began working for the Nigeria Broadcasting Service. It was an exciting time. Nigeria was moving towards independence, and the air was full of hope. But while Chinua worked his day job, his mind was busy building a world made of words. Why did Chinua feel he must write? As we learned, he was tired of reading books that made his people look like they had no history. He famously said, "Until the lions have their own historian, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." He wanted to be the voice of the lion. He wanted to show that African society, before the British arrived, was not dark or disorganized. It was a world of complex laws, beautiful traditions, and deep family loyalty. Chinua began to write his first novel, titled Things Fall Apart. He wrote it by hand. The story was about a strong man named Okonkwo and how his life and his village changed when the first Europeans arrived. Chinua did not make his character perfect. He showed their strengths, but he also showed their mistakes. He wanted his characters to be real human beings. He wrote in English, but it was a new kind of English. He wove Igbo proverbs and rhythms into his sentences. It felt like an African story told in a global language. The journey to publishing this book was almost a disaster. In those days, there were no computers. Chinua had only one handwritten copy of his book. He sent his only manuscript to a London typing service to have it typed professionally. He paid the fee and waited and waited. For many months, he had nothing. The company had ignored him. His heart sank. He thought his only copy was lost forever. Luckily, a co-worker in London went to the office and demanded they find the papers. They found them in a corner, covered in dust. If those papers had been thrown away, the most famous book in African history would never have existed. When Things Fall Apart was finally published in 1958, it was like a lightning bolt. The world had never read anything like it. The book was not just a story, it was an act of bravery. It gave Africans a sense of pride and gave the rest of the world a true picture of a culture they had misunderstood for centuries. Chinua Achebe had succeeded. He had given the lion his voice, and the world was finally listening. After the great success of his first book, Chinua Achebe did not stop working. He believed that a writer should also be a servant to his community. His life was not just about fame, it was about building a strong family and helping his country grow. Chinua continued his work in broadcasting. He became the director of external broadcasting for Nigeria. His job was to help tell Nigeria's story to the rest of the world through the radio. He was a natural leader. He was calm, wise, and always encouraged young writers and journalists to tell the truth. Even as he became a famous author, he showed up to his office every day, dedicated to his profession. He believed that whether you are writing a book or speaking on the radio, your words must have a purpose. While his professional life was busy, Chinua's heart belonged to his family. In 1961, he married a beautiful and intelligent woman named Christy Okoli. Christy was also a scholar, and she understood Chinua's passion for literature. Together, they built a home filled with love, laughter, and of course, many books. They had 4 children: Chinelo, Ikechukwu, Chidi, and Nwando. Chinua was a devoted father. Despite his global travels and busy schedule, he made time to tell his children the same kind of stories his mother had told him in Ogidi. He wanted his children to grow up knowing their roots even as the world around them was changing. Chinua noticed that most children's books in Nigeria were still written by Western authors. He wanted his own children to see themselves in the stories they read at bedtime. So he began to write children's literature. He wrote books like Chike and the River, which told the story of a young boy's adventure in a Nigerian town. By doing this, he showed that he was not just writing for famous critics in London or New York. He was writing for the children of Africa. Many people find it hard to balance a big career with a big family, but Chinua managed it with grace. He viewed his family as his anchor. They kept him grounded as he traveled the world to give speeches and receive awards. He taught his family that success is not measured by how much money you make, but by how much you help others and how well you protect your culture. His life of service showed that a great man is not just measured by his public work, but by the love and the values he leaves behind in his home. Life is not always a smooth road. Even for a man as successful as Chinua Achebe, there were times of great darkness and pain. In this chapter, we will see how he faced the challenges with a brave heart and a steady mind. In the late 1960s, Chinua's home country of Nigeria went through a very difficult time called the Biafran War. It was a time of sadness and struggle for the Igbo people. Chinua could not stay silent. He stopped writing novels for a while to help his people. He traveled to different countries to speak about the suffering of the children and families caught in the war. He lost his home and many of his books and papers were destroyed. But he never lost his courage. He believed that a writer must stand with his people, especially when times are hard. Many years later, in 1990, another great trial arrived. While Chinua was traveling in a car in Nigeria, there was a terrible accident. He was rushed to the hospital with very serious injuries. The doctors told him that he would never be able to walk again. For the rest of his life, Chinua will have to use a wheelchair. For many people, such an accident might mean the end of their career. But Chinua was different. He did not let the wheelchair define who he was. He often said that while his legs were quiet, his mind and his voice were louder than ever. Because he needed special medical care, Chinua and his wife, Christy, moved to the United States. He became a professor at Bard College and later at Brown University. Even though he was far from the red earth of Ogidi, he continued to teach young students about the beauty of African literature. He sat in his wheelchair at the front of the classroom, and when he spoke, the room became silent. Students from all over the world came to hear his wisdom. He showed them that strength does not come from the muscles in your legs, but from the spirit in your soul. During these years, Chinua continued to write essays and poems. He wrote about justice, leadership, and the importance of truth. He received many awards, but he remained a humble man. He proved to the world that trials are like fire. They can either burn you or they can make you stronger like gold. Chinua Achebe chose to be gold. He used his pain to gain a deeper understanding of the human condition, and he shared that understanding with everyone he met. We have reached the final chapter of our story. In March 2013, at the age of 82, Chinua Achebe passed away peacefully in the United States. While his body was laid to rest in his beloved village of Ogidi, his voice did not go silent. In fact, it became louder than ever. Today, Chinua Achebe is known globally as the father of modern African literature. Before him, stories about Africa were mostly told by outsiders. Because of his courage, he opened the door for thousands of other African writers to tell their own stories in their own way. His most famous book, Things Fall Apart, has been translated into more than 50 languages. It is read by students in schools from London to Tokyo, from New York to Lagos. It is more than just a book. It is a bridge that helps people of different cultures to understand one another. Achebe's influence was not only in his books. He was a great teacher. He taught us that language is a tool. You can take a language that was used against you and turn it into a beautiful instrument for peace and truth. He also taught us about integrity. He famously turned down national awards from the Nigerian government twice because he did not agree with the way the country was being led at the time. He believed that a writer must always be the moral compass of society. He showed us that it is more important to be right than to be powerful. As we finish our story, let's look at the moral lesson of Chinua Achebe's life. Your story matters. Achebe grew up at a crossroads, feeling that his culture was being ignored. Instead of giving up, he used his mind and his pen to change the world. He proved that one person with a clear voice and a brave heart can correct the history of a whole continent. Achebe is gone, but every time a young person picks up a book and sees their own life reflected in the pages, his spirit is there. Every time a writer speaks truth to power, his legacy lives on. He taught the world that Africa was not a silent place, but a land of music, wisdom, and complex beauty. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of a true hero of words.